بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So as we have been discussing in the previous two nights regarding the fact that preferring al-akhirah over the dunya and every other matter that requires earning the pleasure of Allah, then that requires a jihad, that requires a struggle, that requires a striving. Seeking knowledge, it requires struggle and striving. Acting upon the knowledge, it requires struggle and striving and sacrifice. Calling to the knowledge, inviting to the knowledge, and being patient in regards to all of that, it requires a mujahada, it requires a jihad, it requires a struggle, a sacrifice, it requires a striving. Otherwise it is difficult. It is something that a person finds a form of, a degree of mashaqqa in, a degree of difficulty in. Preferring the dunya over the akhirah, it is not something easy, especially when you live in a time, as Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan, he says, we live in a time when the dunya, it has spread and it's become very much beautified in an unprecedented manner. The dunya, it's in your face. The dunya, before certain aspects of the dunya, if you kept away from it physically, it's away from you. Now sometimes we can't even help it coming into our houses in the form of these devices. Certain things that a person would have to make sa'i for, he'd have to pursue in order to get that haram, now it's in his pocket. So the dunya, it is something that has spread and it's become beautified in an unprecedented manner. And therefore it does require a form of jihad. It requires a form of struggle and striving for a person to give precedence of the akhirah over the lowly dunya. So the term jihad, it is not a term, as we said, the extremists, the terrorists like ISIS and Al-Qaeda have understood. They have hijacked this term in our era. They have taken this term because they lack true understanding of jihad, and they have applied it to the jihad, specifically on the jihad on the battlefield. And even as far as that is concerned, they lack correct understanding as to who the combatants are in a legitimate war situation, in a conventional war situation. They are ignorant about the principles of warfare, that it should be something that is conducted under the authority of a ruler. So the terrorists, they have misunderstood this term jihad. Jihad, it is a broad term, and it covers many different forms. And among those forms is jihad in seeking knowledge. Among the forms of jihad is acting upon the knowledge that you acquire. Part of that knowledge that you acquire is that you are not to give precedence of the dunya to the akhirah. That's part of the knowledge that you've gained. Now you have to act upon it. Now you have to implement it. That's the difficult part. That's where the jihad really starts to kick in. That's when the striving and the struggle and the sacrifice, that's when it really starts to kick in. Likewise, inviting to the knowledge, that's a form of jihad. Being patient in that regard, that's a form of jihad. Refuting and rebutting those that have the incorrect understanding of the deen, that is a form of jihad. Rebutting those that have false beliefs from the atheists and the agnostics and the secularists and the liberals and the people of innovation that have adopted philosophical beliefs. That is a form of jihad. It is a great form of jihad. So jihad, it is a broad term, and it isn't something that is specific to the jihad on the battlefield. As Allah Jalla wa Ala has said, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبَلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَمَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Indeed, those who make jihad in our cause, then we shall guide them to our pathways. And indeed Allah, He is always with the people of ihsan. He is always with the people of perfection in worship, those who perfect their worship. So which jihad is Allah Ta'ala referring to here in this ayah? If we go back to the Salaf, now we can clearly see. Remember a few nights ago, we mentioned that we have to be upon Salafiyah in the usul of our deen, in the fundamentals of our deen. We have to go back to the Salaf and what manhaj they adopted in the various different fields of the deen. Among them is how to understand the Book of Allah. The Harakiyin and the people of movements, those that join political parties, those that invite to military coups and what have you, they misunderstood this ayah because they misunderstood the ayah concerning, or they misunderstood the correct methodology in making tafsir of the Quran. For example, the ayah, whoever doesn't judge by what Allah has revealed, they are the disbelievers. So those that were ignorant about the correct manhaj, the correct methodology in making tafsir of the Quran, they went to the literal meaning of the ayah. They were ignorant about the fact that there is a manhaj that our Salaf were upon in understanding the ayat of the Quran. So let's now go back to the Salaf of our Ummah and see how did they understand this ayah related to jihad. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, the cousin of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, the one that is the interpreter of the Quran, he said concerning this ayah, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبَلَنَا, those who make jihad in our cause, we shall guide them to our pathways. He said, those that make jihad in our obedience, those who obey Allah, then we shall guide them to the pathways of gaining reward from us. You can clearly see in this ayah, Ibn Abbas, when he makes tafsir of this ayah, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا, those who make jihad in our cause, Ibn Abbas, the great mufassir of the Quran, when he makes tafsir of this ayah, he is not referring specifically to the jihad of the battlefield. He is referring to the jihad of action, the jihad of obeying Allah, the jihad of earning Allah's pleasure by being obedient to Him. Likewise, Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, he said concerning this ayah, those who make jihad in talab al-ilm, those who make jihad in seeking Islamic knowledge, we shall surely guide them to the pathways of acting upon that knowledge. Again, we see from the Salaf that they did not understand this jihad to be specifically to the jihad of the battlefield. Seeking knowledge, they considered that to be a form of jihad. In fact, Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di, when he makes tafsir of this ayah, then he says, when he makes tafsir of this ayah, he says that among the jihad is the jihad of seeking knowledge and refuting the people of misguidance. And those that carry this jihad out of seeking the knowledge, spreading the knowledge, and rebutting those that have the incorrect understanding of this knowledge, even if they are Muslims, Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di, he said, those that perform this jihad, they are from the khawas al-khalq. They are from the special elite of creation. Those that carry out the jihad of seeking knowledge. Because when you seek knowledge and you're sincere in it, then you will want to act upon it. And you'll want to share that knowledge with others. And you will want to refute and rebut and clarify those that harm the path of knowledge by spreading incorrect understandings of the knowledge. Those that are engaged in this field of knowledge and spreading the knowledge and rebutting those that oppose the knowledge, they are from the elite of creation. They are performing a jihad and they are from the elite of creation. Likewise, from this jihad that Allah Ta'ala refers to in this ayah, Sahal ibn Abdullah, he said, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِي إِقَامَةِ السُّنَّةِ لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبَلَ الْجَنَّةِ. those who make jihad in establishing the sunnah, then we shall guide them to the pathways of Al-Jannah. The one who establishes the sunnah, especially in a time when the sunnah has become strange in the lands of Islam, strange in our societies, strange in our communities, strange in some of our households, in our families, among our relatives. So the one who makes jihad in establishing that sunnah, then that is a form of jihad. That is a form of jihad. Establishing the sunnah, even if it's just in your family, in your house, because that is where it begins. Establishing the sunnah, that is a form of jihad. The one who does that, then Allah Ta'ala will guide him to the pathways of Al-Jannah. And likewise, al-Dhahaki mentioned that in his tafsir of this ayah, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِي الْهِجْرَةِ لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبَلَ الثَّبَاتِ عَلَى الْإِيمَانِ. Those who make jihad in making al-hijrah, in emigrating to the lands of Islam, then Allah Ta'ala will make them firm upon Iman. The one who makes jihad, Allah Jalla wa Ala aids him. Allah Ta'ala, He aids him. When you make jihad of leaving the dunya, again the same type of example, that imagine a person, he wanted a career, he wanted a certain career, so since he was, 14, 15, 16, he's been focused on that career. That is what type of career I want when I become a mature adult. So he goes to university and he goes to the courses and his money goes in there. He works part-time, full-time, long hours, weekends. Why? So he can pay for his university course. And then later on he finds out this job that I've been pursuing, that I've been wanting to get, it's not even Islamically allowed. For him to now forsake that for Allah Ta'ala and for the Akhirah, that's a form of jihad. It's a form of struggle. However, if he does that for the sake of Allah, Allah Ta'ala will guide him to the pathways that will make that struggle easy for him. Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, he said when he was making tafsir of this ayah, he said that the one who makes this jihad for the sake of Allah, Allah will open for him forms of guidance and forms of awn, forms of assistance and aid that are basically absolute divine intervention. The one who makes jihad in the cause of Allah, in all the forms of jihad, jihad in seeking knowledge, jihad in acting upon the knowledge, part of that is leaving the dunya that is haram, that dunya that's going to harm your akhirah. The one that makes that jihad, Allah, He will give you assistance. Why won't He? Allah will give you assistance. Allah will help you. Allah will direct you. He will direct you, and the guidance that will come and the assistance that will come, it will be kharijah an mudrak ijtihadi. It will be outside of your scope, outside of the scope of your own efforts. Yani you will never have even perceived that this type of assistance and help and guidance, it will come for you if you make jihad in the path of Allah. So jihad in the path of Allah, jihad for the sake of Allah, in all of its forms, Allah Ta'ala will aid you when you make that jihad. And you have to forsake the dunya for dar al-akhirah. And Allah Ta'ala, He will help you in that regard. And why not? And it is those people that He helps. Why does He help them? Why does Allah Ta'ala help you when you're making jihad? Because in reality, when you're making jihad for the sake of Allah, then you are from the muhsinun. You are from the people of ihsan. You are from the people of perfection of worship. Remember the other night, we discussed about how your deen has levels, and the highest level is ihsan. And that the person who worships Allah at that level of ihsan, he worships Allah as though he sees Him. He's conscious of Allah Ta'ala, seeing Him, watching Him, being full aware and acquainted with what you're doing, being full aware of the inner thoughts of your heart. When you're conscious of Allah Ta'ala, when you have muraqabah of Allah Jalla wa Az, then as we said, and as the ulama have said, you become too shy. You become too shy and too ashamed for Allah Ta'ala to see you doing wrong. And so when you're too shy and ashamed of Allah Jalla wa Ala seeing you doing wrong, then you become a mujahid. Then you want to make jihad. Jihad for the cause of Allah and seeking knowledge. Jihad for the cause of Allah, enacting upon that knowledge. Get rid of this dunya. What is this dunya? Jihad in calling to the knowledge. Being patient in that regard. You want to make that jihad because you're conscious of Allah Jalla wa Az watching you, and so you're ashamed and you're shy that your Rabb doesn't see you struggling and striving in His path. And so when we look at the Sahaba Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayhim, we see and we find that they were at the pinnacle of making this jihad. Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, before he even ever participated in a battle, he was a mujahid. He was someone who struggled and strived and sacrificed for Allah Ta'ala. Imagine it. Today al-Hijrah, it's relative to the time of the Sahaba. We all know it is something easy. It is something easy. Before you even make hijrah to the land, you know everything. You know about the shops there. You know about the environment, everything because of media today. It's easy. It's much more easier than it was in the time of the Sahaba. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu makes hijrah, leaves his family. It's difficult to leave your family even when you have Skype. Even when you have Skype, you can still see them. It's still difficult. You love your family. Abu Hurairah leaves his family, leaves his country, goes to a land, doesn't know them, hasn't met the Sahaba, hasn't met the Prophet, but he believes him. And he makes hijrah to the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. And then how does he live? He's from Ahl Suffah. He's from the people that stayed in that platform in the Prophet's Masjid, the poor people. They lived there, they stayed there because they had no accommodation and they had no food, so they would eat from the charity. This is Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. But why does he do so? Because he was a mujahid. Mujahid in what? Mujahada upon the battlefield, that is a legitimate and great form of jihad. But Abu Hurairah, he's a mujahid right now in seeking knowledge. He sticks to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why he is the greatest of companions that narrated the most amount of hadith. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he has mulazamah of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. He sticks to the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Even though people, they might pass by Abu Hurairah at times and they will see him turning upon his sides on the ground. Why? They will think he's lost his mind. They will think Abu Hurairah has lost his mind. But he hasn't lost his mind. Why is he on the ground turning on his sides in pain? Because he's hungry. Abu Hurairah is extremely hungry because he's from Ahl Suffah. And so he doesn't have enough money to feed himself. But he's making jihad. He is making jihad in the path of Allah, seeking knowledge with Al-Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. This is Abu Hurairah. This is mujahada. This is true jihad. Why was Abu Hurairah like this? Because he had ulu al-himma. He had high goals. He wasn't like people like me and others perhaps. He had high goals, high aspirations, and so he raced for that. Because when you have a certain aim in front of you, when you have a certain goal in front of you, and you're genuine about that goal, you race towards it. And you're willing to sacrifice what you need to get to that goal, to get to that destination. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, his mentality was different. His mentality was Ali. His mentality was high. He had high aspirations, high goals. And so he was willing to be patient in order to be with the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam for talab al-ilm. We have that other companion, Rabi'a ibn Ka'b al-Aslami. In that narration that's recorded by Imam Muslim in his Sahih. Rabi'a ibn Ka'b al-Aslami, he would serve the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. He was poor as well. He was from Ahl Suffah as well. And he would bring water to the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam at night for his wudu and for his needs. So on an occasion, the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he said to him, Salni, ask me, meaning ask me for something. So then Rabi' ibn Ka'b al-Aslami, he says, أسألك مرافقتك في الجنة. I seek your companionship in al-Jannah. I seek your company in al-Jannah. I want your company in al-Jannah, Ya Rasulullah. So the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, أَوَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ? Is there anything else? Anything besides that? So Rabi' ibn Ka'b al-Aslami, poor man, what does he say? He says, who are that? It is that. That is it. That is what I want. That is what I want. Poor man. But what is he asking for? Your companionship, O Messenger of Allah, in al-Jannah. He is somebody that doesn't have an accommodation, not even a studio apartment, not even a flat, a one-room flat. He doesn't have that even. He lives in the masjid, eats from the charity. But what does this man ask for? I want the company of you, O Messenger of Allah, in al-Jannah. Why does he say that? Ulu al-himma. High goal, high aspiration, high aim. When you aim high, then everything else, it becomes relatively meaningless, because your objective is high, your goal, it is high. And so the companions, they are not people that we just read about, they are people that we follow. They are people that we follow, we take them as role models. They had ulu al-himma, high goals, high aspirations, and thus they raced toward the akhirah. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said in relation to this, he said in a hadith recorded by Imam al-Tirmidhi from Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu ta'ala an, Man khafa adlaja, wa man adlaja balagha al-manzil. The one who is scared, he goes out early. He goes out early. He goes out early in the night. Because if that is the best time for you to get to your destination, then you will leave early at night. Man khafa adlaja. The one who is scared, he goes out early. If you want to get to a certain destination, but you're scared, there might be some people that are gonna, highway robbers for example, there might be something that's gonna prevent me from getting to my destination, you will set off early. You'll race towards your destination. Man khafa adlaja, wa man adlaja balagha al-manzil. Whoever goes out early, he reaches his destination, the Messenger said. How does this apply in this context? The one who is scared, meaning the one who is scared of what is to come in the afterlife. We are to be scared. We are to be scared as to what occurs in al-barzakh. We are to be scared as to what is going to occur on Yawm al-Qiyamah. We are to be scared on what is going to occur upon the Sirat. We are to be scared whether we will enter into Jannah or not. So the one who is scared about this, adlaja, he will go out early. The one who is scared about the akhirah, then he will race towards the akhirah. The one who is scared about not getting into al-Jannah, he will race to al-Jannah. He will race towards al-Jannah. He'll put all of his effort into al-Jannah. And then the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, he continues, Ala inna sil'at Allahi ghaliya. Ala inna sil'at Allahi al-Jannah. Indeed, the sil'ah of Allah, the commodity of Allah, the merchandise of Allah is expensive. Allahu Jalla wa Ala has a sil'ah. He has a commodity. Something that is sold is a sil'ah. Allah Ta'ala has a sil'ah. He has a commodity, merchandise. He's selling something. What is he selling? Ala inna sil'at Allahi ghaliya. The commodity of Allah, the merchandise of Allah is expensive. Ala inna sil'at Allahi al-Jannah. Indeed, the sil'ah of Allah, the merchandise that Allah Ta'ala is selling, it is al-Jannah. Jannah, I mean at the end of the day, the shoes that we wear, they have a value, don't they? The shoes that we wear, they have an actual price. You got to work a few hours perhaps in order to be able to earn enough rupees to purchase those sandals, to purchase those shoes. So if it is the case that the shoes that we wear on our feet, the shoes that tread upon, that walk upon, akramakum Allah, and najasa, for example, in the streets, those shoes that go upon the filthy matters in the streets, if those shoes have a value, if those shoes have a price, then how about Al-Jannah? How about Al-Jannah that is everlasting, never ending, eternal? No doubt Jannah has a price, and so your messenger, he says, Ala inna sil'at Allahi ghaliyah. Indeed, the sil'ah of Allah, it is expensive. The commodity of Allah, the merchandise of Allah, it is expensive. The merchandise of Allah, it is Al-Jannah. So Shaykh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz, he says, concerning this hadith, he said, وَمَنْ أَدْلَجَ بَلَغَ الْمَنْزِلِ يعني من سار بالجد وصبر ونشاط وصبر على تعب السير بلغ المنزل بإذن الله في وقت أسرع ممن تساهل وتباطأ. That the one who goes off in his journey, your journey, your destination is Al-Jannah. Your destination is the ru'yah of Allah. Your destination, what you're aiming for, is the seeing of Allah and the companionship with the prophets and the righteous, the truthful ones, the righteous and the martyrs. That is your destination. So the one who goes off to this destination with seriousness and patience and energy, then this type of person, if he's patient in the harm that he faces on this journey, he gets to his destination quicker than the one that is lazy and the one that is slow. Shaykh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz then continues, ثم بين أن سلعة الله غالية فهي جديرة بأن يعمل المؤمن ويجتهد ويصبر ويواصل السير حتى يدرك هذه السلعة العظيمة وهي الجنة. And then the messenger, he clarifies that the sil'ah of Allah, it is expensive. The believer who works hard and is patient and continues on his journey, he gets to this merchandise, this expensive merchandise which is Al-Jannah. وقد جعل الله جل وعلا ثمنها النفس إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة. What's the price for this? What is the price for Al-Jannah? What's the price for paradise? Shaykh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz, he says that Allah has made the price for Al-Jannah you, your soul, your life. When he said in his book, indeed Allah has purchased from the believers themselves. He's purchased from you your lives, your souls and your wealth, so that you may have Al-Jannah. So the soul, your life is the most precious thing that the human being has. And so Allah has purchased your life, purchased your soul in exchange for Al-Jannah. Allah is saying, you can purchase this Jannah, you can have this Jannah, but I want to purchase your soul. I want to purchase your life. I want to purchase your life, your wealth. Give that, and in exchange for that, you can have Al-Jannah. So the one who makes jihad with his soul, the one who sells his soul, sells his life to Allah, surrenders his life to Allah, makes jihad with his soul in obeying Allah, using his soul to seek the pleasure of Allah, and for him is Al-Jannah. For him is paradise. The one who sells his soul, surrenders his soul, gives up his soul to Allah, uses his soul as just a means, a vehicle of making jihad for the sake of Allah in all of its forms. And again, the best role models that we have in this regard are the companions, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim. And we'll conclude with this one great example of a companion, the uncle of Anas ibn Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu. His uncle, his paternal uncle, Anas ibn Nadr. Anas ibn Nadr, he was a companion, a virtuous companion, who was unable to participate in the battle of Badr. He was unable to participate in the battle of Badr because many of the companions didn't know that it was going to be an all-out battle. So he was unable to participate. So he says to the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, Ya Rasulullah, غبت عن أول قتال قاتلت المشركين. O Messenger of Allah, I was absent at the first battle in which you fought against the pagans. لئن الله أشهدني قتال المشركين ليرين الله ما أصنع. If, however, Allah allows me to witness a battle against the polytheists, then Allah will show people what I can do. So then when it was the battle of Uhud, and when the Muslims started to flee, then Anas ibn Nadr, he said, اللهم أعتذر إليك مما صنع هؤلاء يعني أصحابه وأبرأ إليك مما صنع هؤلاء يعني المشركين. Anas ibn Nadr, he says, "O Allah, I seek your pardon. I apologize. I seek your pardon for what these have done," meaning his companions, the Muslims. "And I free myself from what these have done," meaning the polytheists. And then he headed off. He headed off, and when he headed off, he met Sa'd ibn Mu'adh radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So Sa'd, he asks him, "Where are you going?" So Anas ibn Nadr, he says, "Al-Jannah wa Rabbul Ka'bah." Paradise by the Lord of the Kaaba. "Inni ajidu rihaha min duni Uhud." I can smell the fragrance of paradise coming from Uhud, coming from Mount Uhud. Later on, Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, he says to the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, فَمَا اسْتَطَعْتُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ مَا صَنَعَ. I was unable to do what he did. I was unable to achieve what Anas ibn Nadr did on the battlefield. He said, I can smell the fragrance of Al-Jannah coming from Uhud, and then after that he went into the battle, and I was unable to do what he did. Anas ibn Malik, his nephew, he said, we found 80 odd injuries by way of swords, by way of spears, by way of arrows upon the body of my uncle, meaning Anas ibn Nadr. We found 80 odd injuries and piercings and stabbings and what have you on the body of my uncle Anas ibn Nadr. The mushrikeen had not only killed him, they had mutilated him. Nobody could recognize the body of Anas ibn Nadr except Anas' sister, and she recognized him by his fingers. She looked at his fingers, and by way of that she could recognize who this person was and that it was her brother. So Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that we believed that the following ayah was revealed concerning my uncle and his companions, meaning those that did the same feat as him. The following ayah: من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا. Among the believers are men who have been true to Allah concerning the promise they made with Him. Among the believers are a group of men who made a promise with Allah, just like Anas ibn Nadr said. Didn't he say it? He said, if Allah lets me see the polytheists, then Allah will show the people what I'm going to do. He made a promise with Allah. And he was true to his promise. He lived truly to his promise, and then he died fulfilling that promise. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ. And likewise among the believers are those that are waiting. They are still fulfilling their promise with Allah, and they're waiting for death to come to them while they're still fulfilling that promise, and they never ever change, ever in the slightest. So the question that I should be asking myself, this is the jihad that the companions made. This is the struggle and the striving that the companions made. They are a people that are role models for us. They are not just people that we read about, listen about, admire. No, they are people that are role models for us to follow. They made that jihad for the sake of Allah. They made that promise with Allah, and they were true to that promise. The question that I should be asking myself, and everybody should be asking themselves, is what type of promise have we made to Allah Jalla wa Ala? How true have we been in fulfilling what Allah Ta'ala has demanded from us, starting from the basics, starting from seeking knowledge, removing ignorance from myself, removing ignorance from my family, removing ignorance from those that are under my responsibility, and then acting upon that. And part and parcel of acting upon the knowledge is not giving precedence to the lowly dunya over the akhirah. نكتفي بهذا والله تعالى أعلم، وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير.